Hello, friends. Okay, and welcome to the Friend Leigh Show. I am Leigh Ann, your host and friend. I totally screwed that one up. That's kind of been the theme of the day today, but that's okay. I am really hoping that you guys are going to be here and be in the show. If this is your first time listening to the Friend Leigh Show, I just want to let you know that it is a little bit different than most podcasts. So we do a live recording, and I always kind of like you to think about it as I invited you over to my house. And I invited some other friends. Maybe you invited your friends, and we're just gonna chat. So we've got a general theme each month, and then every week we do a different pillar of our happy framework, and we talk about that theme. And how it affects the different pillars of the happy framework. So, and then my favorite part is, let's just see. Oh, there's errors. So I'm hoping that you can still hear me and see me and all that good stuff. But remove this. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so fingers crossed. And Britt is here. Morning. Hello, Britt. Can you hear me okay? Just let me know. So the theme for this month was stories. Awesome. Hello, Sarah. Okay, this is going to be a good show. Britt says, yes, ma'am. You can hear me. Okay, wonderful. So this is going to be a good show. It's always a good show if I've got one or two people that are engaging in the comments, because it's just weird if you're sitting in your family room or living room and you're just kind of talking to yourself. Although I do that. So how weird is that? I don't know. Anyway, so the theme for this month was stories. So how is our narrative affecting the different areas of our happy framework? And if you're new to the show, the happy framework is simply a way of us looking at our life to find those happy moments, because they are all around us, but sometimes it's difficult, especially in the really difficult days, to find things to be happy about. But if we have kind of a framework of where to look, we can see them. And it's not looking on the outside of us, it's looking on the inside of us. So the 5 pillars are our health. So what did we do today that was good for our health, that made us feel good about our health? It could even just be like, I had 1 glass of water. Normally I don't drink any water. That's not the case for me, because you guys know I'm on a water kick. But it could be that simple. And then A is for affection for ourselves. How are we showing ourselves that we love ourselves? It's not enough just to say, yeah, I love myself. We need to be showing ourselves that we love ourselves. And then how are we living into our purpose? And that purpose does not mean that we are changing the world. It could just be changing ourselves or changing the way that we view our world. Our partnerships, because there's no R in happy, and relationships are really key to our happiness. And then youthfulness, that's the why. So we look at all those different areas, and tonight we are going to be looking at partnerships, so relationships. I'm super excited. This is going to be a really good talk. And Britt says, your earrings and blouse, Matt, make the piano pop. Oh, awesome. Sorry, it was that or your pupils. That's wonderful. Hey, I don't know. Okay, so with the green screen, I don't know if you're going to be able to really see this, but these are my favorite earrings. Because maybe you can't. Oh yeah, you can see them there. So they're actually a magnet, and so this whole piece, can you see that? It just comes off, and then you attach it to the magnet, and then you always have different earrings. Anyway, so there we go. Okay, so we've got some people here. Hello, Gain Eager Collector. Okay, why, hello, wonderful. Hello. I'm so happy that you're here. And Britt says, oh, that's cool. Yeah, they are my favorite. I absolutely love them. And then Drox says, do you queen? Do you queen? Do I? Okay, so here's another thing that you need to learn if you are new to the show. I have undiagnosed ADHD. I was actually just having a conversation with my husband, and he was like, are you sure that you have ADHD? Because one of our friends doesn't think that I do, but I think I do. So now I'm just realizing the computer may actually end up slowing down because I only have 30 minutes left on my battery. So I think I'm going to have to be, I think I'm going to have to get Mike to kind of help me and plug this in a different way. So we'll see. Anyway, so how do our stories play into and affect our relationships? This is going to be a really, really good question, because I think out of all of the pillars, our stories affect our relationships more than anything else. So, okay, let's see here. So there's going to be a lot going on. This is going to be good. Okay. So, hello, Drox. So talk more with us. I'm going to be, the whole show is going to be me talking with you. So if you have questions or comments or whatever, I will bring those up on the screen. And then Gain Eager Collector says, is he Mike Hawks small? Okay, so I don't know what this means. So here we go. So I'm going to probably let Britt field some of these questions. If you don't mind, Britt, I'm going to totally put you on the spot, because I'm feeling like some of these might be really Twitch related that I am still not sure of. However, I did do a scheduling the stream in Twitch today. I was so proud of myself. So maybe that's actually why we're getting more people from Twitch, which is super, super exciting. Okay, super cool. So how do our stories affect our relationships? Huge. So one of the things that I think I've told you guys about this in the past, and I should give this disclaimer. This podcast is actually, hold on one second. You guys, this is going to be a really obnoxious show. I'm sorry. Please stay here. Don't run away, even though I am going to mute for one quick second. Okay. Because I'm going to yell for Mike. Okay, he actually may not be here. So the computer may crap out on me. So let's just hope for the best. Okay. Okay. So I'm thinking that Gain, I'm probably going to be ignoring you for the rest of the show, just FYI. And Britt just says, I'm in the dark too. So yeah. So Gain, I think I've decided that I'm going to probably ignore you. Yeah, I think I'm going to, but you're more than welcome to stay here. So, okay. So one of the things that I do with one of my girlfriends, and actually I've started doing it with a few people, and I think it's really, really powerful. And we do this thing called, I want to check my story. And what that means is if we're having a conversation, and then, when somebody says something and it might not really affect you in the moment, but then like you go home and you're like, what did she mean by that? Or what was that supposed to mean? And then you start creating these stories in your head of what it means, what she was thinking. And that is really unfair for us because we have no idea what other people are actually thinking. So now we do this check the story. So we will just like voice message each other or call each other or text each other and just be like, hey, I just want to check a story. So yesterday you said fill in the blank, whatever that is. And did you mean that fill in the blank, whatever assumption I made? And I just want to check my story on that. And then 95% of the time that I do that, so I don't do that all the time because a lot of the time you just know what's going on, right? Like you're in complete flow. You totally get it. Oh, Melanie. Hey, long time no see. I know, I'm so happy that you're here, Mel. How have you been? How's the new job? Okay. Oh, okay. So Gain just says that I will. I'm not like you. I will interact, not ignore. Okay. No, I'm only going to ignore if it's not kind. That's all. So if it's kind things, then I want you to be a part of the show. Totally. So anyway, so 95% of the time when we are checking stories, usually we're wrong. Usually. And so if we didn't check the story, then we can go weeks or months thinking something else and not feeling good about that relationship. And then we have a confirmation bias. Our brain is set up that we're always looking to prove ourselves right. That's what our brain wants to do all the time. And so if we create these stories from what friends tell us or say to us, or the way that they looked at us or whatever, and we don't check that story, if we don't say, hey, am I interpreting this right? And we have the wrong interpretation, we then go into every subsequent conversation, text message, everything with that lens, and we look at everything wrong. So now we're creating this friendship based on poor information. So that's why I think, that's why I really think that checking our story, especially in relationships, is really, really important. And that's just a really good way of doing it. And then if on that 5-10% chance that what you thought was right, you get to have a conversation about it. You get to say, oh my gosh, okay, so I'm really sorry that that's how you took this, or I'm really sorry that, we're in this uncomfortable space in our relationship, and you get to work it out. So it's really a win-win by checking our stories. Mel says, love my job. God is good. I'm so happy, woman. That is so good. I've been praying for you. So that is one of like my biggest tips, is doing this with your family, with your friends, with your significant other. Immediately, when you start having a story in your head about the way something went, just check it with the source. Check it with the source. Don't check it with, if you have an argument with your spouse, okay, don't check the story with your girlfriend. Don't check your story with your bestie. Don't be like, oh my gosh, this is what happened. And am I crazy? Is this the way that I should interpret it? Because a lot of our friends are not great friends. We're going to tell, like, let's say I'm upset with Mike about something, I need to bring that to Mike. I need to bring it to him. If I bring it to a friend and a friend sees me upset, a friend is going to want to be like, oh yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. You're not crazy. And then you feed this whole thing. And that story, the beginning story, the origin story, might not even be correct. So you always want to check your stories with the source. And you want to check your stories with yourself. Like that can be your first gate that you go through, that you're like, okay. And I want you guys to tell me, like, are there times that it might have taken you a little while, but you finally checked the story with somebody, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've been arguing about this for this long, because it was totally a misunderstanding. Let me know if you've had any of those experiences, because I'm pretty sure that you probably have. And to me, it's just fascinating. So anyway, I don't remember exactly where I was, but I wanted to really give that piece of advice right out of the gate, because I think it's really important. The other way that our stories show up in our relationships is with our relationships just with strangers, with our relationships with people that we don't know. And one of the stories that a lot of people keep is, I can't share that with a stranger, or I'm not going to be that weird person that's going to make eye contact and say hi, because that's just weird. Those kinds of stories will feed into why we feel alone, because we feel like there's nobody around us that we can talk to, or that we can communicate with, or that we don't feel like we're a part of any kind of community. And that's just not true. So I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and she was like, oh my gosh, Leanne, I was listening to one of your lives. And if you guys are not on or inside of our Facebook group, make sure that you come on over there, because I do a live, I would say 3 to 4 times a week. I shoot for 5 to 6, but I usually end up getting 3 to 4 consistently. And I do the walks while I'm on, or I do the talks while I'm on a walk. And she voice messaged me right after one of my lives, and she was like, oh my gosh, how do you know everybody? And I was like, I don't. I know 2 people on that walk, like the walk that I did this one night. I knew which talk she was talking about. And I was like, I actually only knew 2 people. And the 2 people that I knew, I only knew them from walking and saying hi. And they were regular people, like that walk the same route all the time. And so then I got to know them, but everybody else was new. I just was able, okay, you guys, I'm gonna hold off for a minute. Mike. No, he can't hear me again. Okay, so we have this big fan going, and every time that he like walks by, I think that I'm gonna be able to get him. But if he gets within out of earshot, he can't hear me. So hopefully, because I can see it starting to slow down. So anyway, we get to decide who we're going to be in communication with and who we're going to be making friends with. I was talking to, you guys know, like Wednesdays are my therapy days, and I do it every other week. So this week, I had my therapy session, and it was so good. And she was like, you know what? She's like, I feel like you don't have any strangers in your life. And I was like, no, I don't. Okay, hold on one second, you guys. Mike. Oh my gosh, he's trying to be respectful of the podcasting, but he has his earphones in. Oh my gosh, he just doesn't know that I need help. Okay, that's okay. So let's see. I'm going to bring up Sarah's message, and it says, yes, it's always good to see where the other person is coming from. If we don't check, then we assume, and that never works. 100%. Yeah. It is so fascinating, the creative stories that we can come up with. And that's one of the things that I always say is that I am a very creative person. I'm just texting Mike. Can you please help me? And if you're listening to this in the audio version, you know what? I'm really sorry. Welcome to my living room. But pretend that there's something happening in the other room that I have to kind of keep going and checking on. Like my therapist today, it was so cute. She was like, I hate to do this. I am so sorry, but I'm actually working from home today, and my dog is about to break out of the fence in the backyard. And I was like, oh my gosh, just go. So we can pretend that a scenario like that is happening right now. But anyway, okay. So yes, checking those stories are really important. Also, the stories behind not only how an actual relationship is going, like how an actual situation went, but the stories behind what kind of people we want to have in our life. Like if we tell ourselves, well, you know what, my circle is just, they're not really into personal growth. So I could never share what I'm doing with them. That might not actually be true. I want you to consider this. I want you to really think about this. And I don't think that people think about this enough. So let's say that we're all sitting around here. We're sitting in the living room, right? And anybody that would be in my living room probably likes personal growth. But let's say that we're talking about something else, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And we're like, oh gosh, you know what? I would love to talk about gardening. But I mean, my group, we don't really talk about gardening. Nobody really gardens. Nobody does it, right? And so when you're with your friends, you don't talk about gardening because and this is maybe a silly example, but it's just like you can relate, I think. So you don't talk about gardening because your quote unquote friend circle doesn't garden, right? And then something happens that you guys are in a group or whatever, like let's say you're out at a restaurant, and then somebody else from another circle of your friends comes up and was like, oh my gosh, Sarah, I needed to just like tell you, I saw you from across the room, and I was like, oh my gosh, my tomatoes, they are like on fire right now. And you get excited and you go in this conversation with them. And the rest of your quote unquote circle that doesn't garden looks at you and is like, what, you garden? And you're like, yeah, I do. But I mean, like, I know it might be weird. And then everybody in the group, or let's say half of the group, says, oh my gosh, I garden too. Oh my gosh, how did we never know this? And that happens so much in relationships. That happens like, especially in like friend circles where you kind of have this circle is for this. This is what we do with these people. And you don't veer from it. Well, if you're not veering from it and sharing your full life and your full story, then other people in that same group are doing the same thing and they're not sharing their full story. So now you're not getting that richness of a full relationship with these friends. So I'm hoping that some of you guys are like tracking with this, but that's why I think it's so important to not only share the story that you have in your brain about whatever the situation was, but also your full story of who you are. not saying, oh, I can't share this piece of me with, my work friends, and I can only share this with my, high school friends, and picking and choosing all these different pieces. We need to be sharing our full, I hate using the word authentic because so many people are using it and it's just like a weird word now, but our full self with people, because then we get to get all of these layers of our relationships. They become deep and they become exciting, and you get to talk about a whole lot more, So Britt says, or like I told our oldest recently, sorry, my mouth is not working today for some reason. Don't make a decision for them. Make them tell you yes or no. Oh, that is such a good one. That is really, really good. Yes. Making that assumption that, oh, they won't want to do this. Oh man, I would really love to go fill in the blank. I'd love to go and see this movie, but they won't want to do that. Yeah, that's a really good one, Britt. Don't make a decision for them. Don't make a decision for anybody about how they're going to respond. And also, don't make the decision based on old or past decisions that they've made. You might have a friend that you've been friends with since high school, and you're like, oh, they're not that type. I know them. They would definitely say no to this experience or whatever it is. But they've grown, but they haven't shared that with you because that's not what you guys do. You guys have been friends since high school. And so your, conversations are very limited to this box of things. So yeah, don't make a decision for other people. That is so, so good. Oh gosh, I'm really trying to figure out. Okay. You know what? I'm going to put you guys on mute. You guys talk, put comments in there, do whatever you want. I think I know what I'm going to do. And it's going to be like bad visual, but the audio will be better. So hold on one second. Okay. Sorry. I wish I could figure out how to do this and also have volume, but just stay here. Okay, please. There we go. We are back, and I will have full juice for the rest of the show, but the lighting looks a little bit wonky. So that's okay. I should have done that to begin with. I wasn't thinking. So we have this power bar. This is again TMI, but like whatever. Welcome to my life that I just share everything. So we have this power bar, and it's this really cool power bar that his dad got us. And it's like, there's 2 or 3 plugs in the front of it or in the top of it that's always on. And then there's a control that, like, whatever's plugged into the control controls the rest of these. So then you're able to like plug, like, let's say you plug a light in, and then when you turn the light on, it also turns on these other 3 things. And so that's perfect. So we have everything, because he's got like a roadcaster thing. He's got the internet. He's got my computer, the 2 lights, like all this stuff all rigged up. And then I came in and tried to do the podcast without him being here, and something's not working right. So I don't know what I did wrong. So then I tried to like plug things in, and then I ran out of plugs, and then whatever. Anyway, who cares? You guys don't care, but let's go see what Sarah has to say. I feel much better now though, because now I know I can have a full show with you guys and it's not skipping. So hopefully everything's going to be good. So Sarah says, how should you handle, ooh, I love it when you guys ask questions. Okay. So I'm going to put this down just for a quick second. I don't know if I gave this disclaimer in the beginning, but this podcast is meant for education and entertainment purposes only. I am not a healthcare professional, nor do I pretend to be one. I'm not a therapist. So any kind of advice or things that I give on the show is strictly from my own experience. And it's literally like we are friends in my living room. That's what I really want. Like if I could have a big enough living room that you guys all could just come here on Wednesdays, that's what I would do. Like I would just love it. My brain just went there and I was like, how do we make that happen? Anyway, so that is my disclaimer. Also, if you hear anything from people in the chat, that ends up saying, or in the comments that ends up giving you like an idea about treatment or diagnosis or anything like that, please speak to a healthcare professional. Okay. So there we go. I do that disclaimer at some point through the show. And this was a perfect spot because Sarah has a question and I can't wait to answer it. I actually don't know what the question is, but let's see. How should you handle people you try to share with and they think you've lost it? Okay. So this is a good one. Let's think about this. So if you just came up to me and asked me this is probably how I would just tell you. So it would be, I mean, it depends. It's kind of like really like loose, that question. So, okay. I have a story that I kind of want to tell you guys, but like, I don't know. Anyway, you guys don't know her. So I guess I could tell the story, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. So, a friend of mine, she was telling me a story about how her childhood trauma, she gave me like this whole like background about her, that there was this big childhood trauma. And then when she grew up, she didn't realize that that had really affected how she looks at men. And so when she was older and she was in a very loving relationship, very happy, but she like had these thoughts about like wanting to hurt him. And she thought she was crazy. Like that felt like a very crazy thing. And when she went and talked to a therapist and was like, before we even get started, I just want to know, I have these thoughts. Am I going crazy? And the therapist was like, no, you're not going crazy. This is a very specific response that your brain is just trying to keep you safe. Your brain had, traumatic issues while you were growing up. Oh, let's see if that works. Your brain, and it went into survival. And so when it does that, it unless you deal with it, it doesn't know how to come out of it. So anytime that there's another situation that's similar, your brain just wants to protect you. Like it is a mama bear that is like, oh my gosh, we're close. We've been here before. We know how this plays out. I'm going to save you. Okay. And so that's what it does. And so that's not crazy. So that story I just want to share because it was pretty significant, the thoughts that she was having. And from an outside, just seeing that as like, you're in a loving relationship and yet you want to hurt your husband or boyfriend or whatever it was, sounds crazy. Sounds quote unquote like you've got issues and you're going to have to go and, be put away. And it's not. It's just the way that your brain is protecting you. So I want to say that I don't think that that's your issue, Sarah. I mean, it might be, but I don't think that's what your scenario is. But I think that's a really good example of you're not crazy. And so when other people think you're crazy, they're not getting to know you, and this is the way that I would handle it now. Back in the day, the way that I would handle it before I've done all this work, before I got it, I wouldn't share. I'd be like, oh my gosh, okay, I shared it. And then I would like try to like, I think you misunderstood and like maybe gaslight people to be like, let me try to get out of this. And that's not cool. If you share your story, whatever it is, with somebody and they think that you're crazy and they're just like, you're nuts, whatever, they're not your people. And if they're not willing to have a conversation with you about it, like Sarah, if you want to like elaborate more about whether it's your situation or somebody in your life that you're trying to look for help for, if you could be more specific, maybe I could help you a little bit more specifically. But that's what I would say is just knowing that they're not my person. People use the word crazy, like, oh my gosh, you're nuts. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. And I mean, I like the word weird. I like to feel like I'm weird instead of crazy, I guess. But what is that? Like, personally, I would rather be weird than normal, like any day of the week. Estent says, I think I've outgrown my circle. Amen. That is a big part of it. And so that's why I'm saying they're just not your people. They could have been before. And that was that whole story about like, if you're still hanging out with people from high school, and you guys haven't grown in the same direction, and there's some of them that are just like, still talking about the good old years, that's kind of an issue. That's hard to grow a relationship because you're not able to share your full self with. And I think that happens a lot. I look back at like my friend circle, and when you're younger, so I don't think it's because we have less options of having friends that our friend circle gets smaller. I think it's because we're more discerning with who we want to spend time with. At least for me, that's the way that it is. And I just know that my time is so just precious. We don't have a lot of it regardless. Like once you hit 35, 40, you don't have a whole lot. Like you've got, maybe on a good end, you might have 40 or 50 summers left, and I know that's morbid, but if you look at life that way, we don't have a whole lot that we can just be with people that aren't growing with us, or that are making us feel less than who we are. If we're not able to share our full self with them, I don't want to spend a lot of time with them. And I say a lot of time because there are some people that, they might be family, or they might be, like you might have a circle that you really like a lot of the people, but there's a few people in there that you're just like, oh gosh, I wish that she was just busy and she couldn't come, but she's there. I wouldn't personally negate the entire group because of the one person. I would try to sit at the other end of the table though, because I just personally don't want to spend my precious time with people that are not helping me grow, helping me see myself in a different light, all of that kind of thing. So Estent says, I was speaking to my mindset shift. So when I share, even on Facebook, they can be rude. I think more so because they're not there, not positive and stuff like that. Mostly my family, to be honest. Well, it's funny because that's why I said, when I said, like the family, like you might want to still spend time with them. Like you still want to, that's why you guys, that's why Christmas and Thanksgiving is like the two not most, well, maybe most stressful times of the year. It's not because of all the shopping. It's not because of all the traffic. It's not because of all that. It's because of the relationships that you have to deal with. It's because the majority of people, like, think about it. You've got to spend time with family that you're forced to be with. And the chances of the entire family growing in the same direction for 40, 50, 60 years, not great. Not great. So you're going to have cousins that are just like, completely different than you. You're going to have the uncle that's just inappropriate. You're going to have the aunt that is just complaining. You're going to have, like, especially if you have a bigger family, dear Lord, like there's always going to be people in there. And so that's what's stressful. But like you said, having that mindset shift, that's huge. And so I think, especially going into the holidays, and as we're going to be spending more time probably with family and friends and all of that kind of thing, I think we need to take stock of who's in our life and who we want to still spend time with. Okay. And then when we get a list of the people that we want to spend time with, like all of the people, not the people that we really love spending time with, just the people that we want to. So family, friends, whatever, like I want to make sure that I'm still spending time. I'm still checking in. I'm still seeing how they are. I still want them to know that I'm here for them. That whole list, that's going to be a big list, right? And then you can start looking at, okay, these people, their family, or they're really good friends, or they're part of that circle that I want them to know that I love them, and I want them to know that I'm there, and I want to be able to see them a couple times a year, but that's it. Like I'm not doing anything extra. I'm not investing a lot of time. And if you know that to be true, then you can kind of not put up a wall, but kind of put up a bubble when you're around them that you're just like, okay, I think I talked about it on the show. My girlfriend shared it with me that it's kind of like, you kind of look at it like I am here and you are there, and we can have a conversation, but I'm not going to take in any of your energy. I'm not going to take in any of your bullshit. I'm not going to take in any of the inappropriate things that you're going to say. I'm just going to kind of like let it be there and then listen to it, but just not take it in. Kind of like, actually, I'll just bring you back into the fold here. So, the gentleman, Gain, that was here earlier, I do not know 100% if he was being completely inappropriate, but I'm pretty sure that he was. And so instead of spending a lot of energy or a lot of time, and you can like go back to the replay of this and see how I handled it, I still acknowledged it. I still acknowledged that he was here, but I chose that I won't be bringing up his comments anymore. That's it. I'm not going to really engage with it anymore, because I don't have to be kind to people that are not kind. You know, I don't have to engage just because somebody else is engaging with me. You don't have to. And I'm a very kind person, and I love making new friends, and I love making people feel, you know, loved and heard and seen. That is one of my favorite things to do. But if you're going to be inappropriate and make other people not feel good, I don't want to. And so that's why I said, hey, I'm not going to really be engaging with you unless you like to say things that are nice. Then you can by all means be here, or you can by all means listen to it. I think he still might be here, which is totally cool. And I really hope he is, because we all make, here's the other thing, is that we all are just doing the best that we can with what we've got and where we are. All of us, even people that are not where we are mindset wise, they're doing the best that they can. But that's not to say that they can't do better. And when I say better, I just mean for them, because if you're being mean or you're being unkind to people, like that can't feel good to you when you go to bed. Like you can't be like, oh, that was great. Like I made her squirm, like, right? People, you don't feel good about it. But what it does do is that story feeds into, like, I don't know Gain. I don't know him, but he might have a story that, you know, people ignore me. People don't like me. People don't like this story. And so now it makes you act in a certain way that when we were talking about that confirmation bias, your body is going to act in a way to confirm the thoughts that you believe. So if you believe that people aren't going to like you, your body is fascinating. Your brain is fascinating. It will make you do things and say things and be certain ways to confirm that you're the way that you think that you are. That however you identify, that is how you're going to behave. And so, you know, when Gain leaves this show, he's going to be like, see, she doesn't even know me and she didn't like me, or she didn't, which by the way, Gain, I do not like you. I do like you. And I'm glad that you're here. And I'm hoping that you're still listening to this. But there's also, I don't think there's any shame in behaving a certain way because you just don't know any better. What I think is something that won't feel good is knowing that what you're doing is not kind and then doing it anyway. But like this example, Gain, he may have in other circles, maybe in the Twitch world, when you're joking around about stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, okay, so good. I'm having conversations because it's so funny. And like, you know, all my high school buddies, we all joke around like that. You know what I mean? And so you have a confirmation bias that this kind of joking is funny because of the circle you're in. But now he may be listening to this right now and be like, oh, wait, you know what? Actually, that wasn't the kindest way of like introducing myself to this new person. And so now you get to just make a better decision. So now you get to just be a part of the conversation in a different way. And we need to accept that. So that's kind of a long-winded way. Well, thank you. Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. She's like, yes, you handled that well. Thank you. And I think a big part of that is knowing who you are. And then also just knowing that there's a lot of hurt people out there. There's a lot of people that don't have the mindset work that we've done. And we were at a point at some time in our life that we didn't do the work, you know? there were times where, we were the shitty little high schooler that was, a jerk, or we were the 20-year-old that was like, doing stupid shit because we, wanted friends and we didn't care about who we were. We were the person that was just making poor decisions. I was talking to my therapist today, and I think I've brought this story up before. I mean, I know that I've brought the story up, but I don't know if I shared this part of it. Anyway, so you guys know that I lost my virginity to rape, right? So, and I know I say that very flippantly, but I've done a lot of work to get to this point. That's just part of my story. That's just part of it. What part of it is that I don't know that everybody here knows is that it was a date rape. And because I lost my virginity, I knew I was going to hell. That's like, I was very Catholic. I'm no longer, I'm still Catholic because I haven't like renounced my Christianity or whatever. But the Roman Catholic, I have a hard time with that church, or at least my specific church, because they were very judgy. And that, even though I had no control over it, even though he was in the wrong, that meant I was going to hell. And I think that's not my God. My God doesn't believe that. But when I was that age, I thought that was the truth. And so part of my stories, part of the story that I had, the narrative that I had, and the relationship that I built was that if I date him now and end up marrying him, then maybe God can overlook that because it was just a weird thing with the timeline, right? Like maybe I can make this okay. And that choice back then was the best choice that I could make, with the information that I had, with the situation that I was in, with all of it. That was the best decision. And that was part of my survival. That was part of my, okay, because my Catholicism was so strong. And that's why I was still a virgin for so long, was because I wasn't doing it until I got married. That was just it. And when that happened, that just shook my world. And so then I was like, okay, I know how to fix this. I know how to do it. And so I made that decision. And when I was talking to my therapist today, it was just fascinating because she was like, she brought that up and was like, hey, like, this is just something that you can consider, is that at that time, that was your best decision. But in our conversations, I know that that would not be your decision if the same thing happened now, right? You would have different knowledge, you would have different experience, you would be a different person. So you would handle it differently. So Sarah, when you're thinking about these people that are like thinking you're crazy, or like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're posting all that stuff. Like, that's not you. Like that saying, I don't know if you get that part of it, but I got that as I was growing and as I was shifting. It was like, who do you think you are? Or, what are you trying to prove? Or who are you trying to be, right? I'm just trying to be me. Like, this is something I like. So when people are coming at you that way, we just have to remember that those same people in a week, in a month, in a year, in 5 years may grow and may change the way that they look at the world. And they may come back to you and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I was giving you so much grief over the posts that you were making. I loved them. Like, I just was too insecure, or I was just too in my head, or I was just too, whatever the case may be. So I guess that's a long-winded, circular way of saying, I think you're doing a really good job by just knowing that you have kind of outgrown your circle. I think with all the work, I mean, I know you've done a lot of work. I know that I've had really great conversations with you, and I'm in awe of you and the way that your brain is and the way how evolved you are. So I can absolutely see where people could be like, think that you're going off the deep end, or you're going into something different, because you do think differently than a lot of the people. But I mean, most of the people, we don't have a great mindset as just a generation right now. As North Americans, we don't have a great we don't have a great outlook on life, and we don't have a great outlook on people. And so when we have a different one, that we do think that, we're in control of the majority of our life, when we do believe that the choices we make matter, when we do believe that we can, become disciplined, or that we can alter our circumstance, we can alter our world around us based on our thoughts and our beliefs and our identity and all of that. Like, once we start believing all that stuff, we can change our world, which changes the world from our perspective. But if people aren't doing that work, they don't see that. And then, yeah, absolutely, you're crazy. you know? So Sarah says, I am Catholic too, but no, that is not our God. They can take it overboard. Absolutely. So I was just at the wrong church with the wrong people. They were also the people that, they were like, I don't know what, there's a name for it, but like, where they're Sunday church people, where they're like, I'm going to church on Sunday in my Sunday best, and I'm doing all of the things. And then Monday, I'm going to like make fun of, people at school. Like, those people, those are the people that were at my church. And I was just like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't good. And that whole experience that I had, it really shook me. What was fascinating is it never shook my belief in God, ever. It didn't. Actually, then that night, I ended up going to my priest, not my priest from my church, my priest that left my church or was kicked out of my church because he was a good man. And I went to him and I was like, I need help because I can't go to hell. Like, what do I do? And but it changed me. And it's one of those things that I think everything in our life, insignificant and significant, changes us. Sometimes it changes us dramatically, that we, have a lot of work to do to make sure that we're changing in the direction that we want to be. And then there's some things that are just like changing us and we don't even know it. They're just little things that are changing us a little bit. And so when it comes to like our stories and our relationships, I think we need to really check in with our stories about how we perceive other people, how we think we're being perceived by people. We also, when Facebook, this is one of the really difficult things with Facebook, is especially if you have like a very sarcastic kind of humor, which I do. And that's why I do voice messages a lot, because I know that my humor, the way that I chat with people, would not come across well in text. So I don't want there to be any kind of real misunderstanding. So I do a lot of voice messages because I want you to hear how I feel and what I'm saying. And there's still misunderstanding, but it's a lot easier with voice. So with text, checking those stories and not inside of the comments, but in DMs or giving a phone call or whatever, and just checking and being like, hey, what did you mean by that? Like, just asking that, just be like, hey, I didn't really understand. Like, what did you mean by, like, what was one of the things that, sharing even on they can be rude. Yeah. So when they're rude, message them. And I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but if this is somebody that you do care about, I would message them and be like, hey, when I posted this thing, you said blah, 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 fill in the blank, whatever it was. Be like, what did you mean by that? That's it. And then wait and then see what they say. And even if they backtrack, even if they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. I actually meant blah, 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 blah. Or, oh, I was just joking. Like, I hate that. Oh, I was just joking because now you're calling me out on it. And now you're making me realize that I was a jerk. Like, fine. Let them save face at that point. At least now it's been acknowledged that that was inappropriate. Let them save face. I think that is like a really great way of just like, you don't have to hold them to it. If they just are like, oh my gosh, you know what? I was just joking. That's fine. Then just say, oh, okay. Cause it kind of hurt when you said that, like say things like that. And then if they end up continuing to do it, then you can be like, okay, well, that's just who you are. You're not joking. But if people are called out on it, I feel like either they will back away from the relationship, which is fine. Allow them to kind of leave. Or you'll have deeper conversations about like, oh yeah, I didn't mean it. Or I'm sorry, I was in a really bad mood. Or the other thing that happens a lot, you guys, which I've noticed because I do this like story check, is that we're really busy. And so we want to comment on things, or we want to, like, you text me and then I'm going to text you back. And normally I'm like wordy, but I was just busy. But in my mind, I want to quickly give you a message because I want you to know that I received your message and that I got it. And I'm like, oh, okay, or whatever. Mike and I did that today. We were chatting back and forth, like just in text while he was at work and I was at work. And then, so we were having this dialogue, and then I got really busy and he said something, and I can't even remember what it was. It wasn't anything significant, but he said something. And then I was like, okay. And that was it. But it was because I was like, okay, I just want him to know that I saw it and that's good. Like, we're good. And then he was like, are you okay? Did I say something wrong? Like, what's going on? And like, he checked it right away. And I was like, sorry, babe, super busy. I'll call you later. Like, just did that really quickly. And he's like, oh, okay. Because sometimes when we think somebody's being short, because we have like a lot of insecurities ourselves, like just a lot of us, maybe you have like a massive amount of confidence. Awesome. Most people I know don't. So when we hear somebody being short, we think that they're mad at us, or we think that we did something wrong, or we think, and sometimes it's just people are busy and they want to acknowledge you. And that's all that it is. So that story checking is really important for that part too. Sarah also says, oh yes, I know those people. Nothing Christian about them. No, absolutely not. So Sarah, you can totally call me out if I went around the question and didn't answer it fully for you. Or if you have more follow-up questions about it, and we can still continue that conversation, because I think this is a really important conversation. Also a conversation that we can continue on in our Facebook group. Because I just think that this is where a lot of the relationships break down. They break down not because of what's actually happening in the conversation. It's breaking down what's happening between the conversations in our head. I think that's the biggest problem with relationships, with romantic relationships. That's a big one, that like you don't have good enough communication. So you just make all of these assumptions, and you just make all of these, like, you should know me. No, like, you guys, I used to be that way. When I was dating people, I'd be like, well, you should know me well enough to know. And it's like, how fair is that? Because how many times do you do something that you're like, oh my gosh, who am I? Like, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or whatever it is. And if you don't know why you did the thing that you did, why are you expecting people that are on the outside of your brain to know why you said the thing that you said, or that they should have said something a little bit different? So I think that our stories are so important, and we need to be more clear. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, when we say something to somebody, sometimes we just want to double down on things, even if it was like, oh, that didn't come out right, but that's okay. I'm just going to go with it. Sometimes we say things and then we're like, oh my gosh, that's not exactly what I meant. Like, I didn't mean that. But you don't want to go back to it, and you don't want to be like, oh, when I said that thing, I actually didn't mean it exactly like that. You sometimes just kind of go on with the conversation and let it go. And those are the things that end up like spiraling in your friend's head. So if you say something and it comes across, and the times when you've done this, you say something and then you're like, oh, I don't know that landed right. But then you're like, oh, it doesn't look like that didn't really land with her anyway. She's fine. She didn't really, okay, that's fine. I was going to go on. And that chatter is just happening in your brain. So there was something that needed to be cleaned up. You didn't clean it up because that would just be weird. You moved on, and then nobody said anything. So it's fine. We move on with our day, right? In those moments when you have that, like, ooh, maybe that wasn't right. Or, ooh, maybe I should have said that differently. Say it differently. Say it differently. Go back to that conversation and say, hey, you know what? When I said, do you love that shirt? I don't know. This is a really bad example. But when I said, like, fill in the blank, what I meant was, I really like your shirt. I just wanted to know if you liked it too, because you didn't seem really like sure about it. But I didn't want you to think that I didn't like it. So you can be weird about it. I would much rather you be weird and clean something up than not say anything and then let people ruminate about like what was said or the look you gave or whatever. And I think the more that we can have better stories with people, the more that we can have clear stories with people, I think it's going to be a lot better for all of our nurturing of our relationships if we actually want to do that. Sarah, and you guys, have I lost all of you? Is it just like me and Sarah now in the room? So Sarah says, a friend of mine asked why I care about aunts and uncles who I see 4 times a year. She asked what value they have in my life, really, and it got me thinking. Maybe we were never as close as I thought. A friend of mine asked why I care about aunts and uncles who I see 4 times a year. Yeah, see 4 times a year. Yeah, I saw that. Oh, I just assumed that that's what you meant. That's why I said it out loud. She asked what value they have in my life, really. And it got me thinking, maybe we were never as close as I thought. Maybe you and your friend were never as close as you thought, or you and your aunts and uncles were not as close as you thought. I'm going to kind of let you answer that part of it because I think I'm misinterpreting that part. But when you said maybe we were never as close as I thought, who's we? So yeah, this is really like, I think pivotal. I think it's pivotal with our confidence level. Because if we keep feeding into these stories that aren't true, we keep feeding into our worth. We keep feeding into, of course, people don't like us because here's my evidence, even though it's not real evidence, it's just evidence that was in your head. So I think that the more that we can check our stories, the more that we can create stronger stories that lead us in the direction that we want to go in. I've talked a lot about on the show that like we listen to what we're saying to ourselves, write it down. And if it doesn't sound that it's like really putting you where you need to be, if it's making you feel shitty about yourself, it's probably a lie. And then we need to start like reconfiguring that into a truth that makes us feel good about ourselves. And we need to do that work. We need to. When I was talking to my therapist today, she was just amazing. And she was like, I was telling her about all the plans and all the things that I have going on. And she's like, you have done so much work. You can't stop now. Just because you feel like you're really getting to a good place, that you're, feeling really good, you're going to places now that you've never been. And unfortunately, you are now going to get different lies fed to you, that you're going to start believing things differently. You're going to start having that, imposter syndrome and all that kind of thing that you thought you were getting rid of. But now as you get to new levels, I can't remember what the saying is, new levels, new devils or something like that. And it's just true. And so she was like, please don't stop doing the work. We've got to keep going. And not just like her and I, but like me and myself, we've got to keep doing the work because there's those stories that are going to come up. Unfortunately, it's not like a one and done kind of thing. Okay. So Sarah says, the aunts and uncles. Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting. Maybe you weren't as close with them. And that's when I was saying in the beginning about getting kind of an inventory, and an inventory now is a really good idea before the holidays come, because then it's too late, right? Like the holidays are here and you're sitting across from Aunt Sue and you're like, oh my, by the way, not my Aunt Sue. I love my Aunt Sue. Just, I don't know where that came from. So Aunt Sue, if you're listening to this, I absolutely adore you. Okay. So anyway, but like Aunt Hester is sitting across the table. I don't have an Aunt Hester. So, Aunt Hester is sitting across the table and you're like, oh shit, I don't want to ever be in a room with that woman again. Now it's too late. Right. So think about the relationships that you have, all of them. So with your aunts and uncles, and decide why you want to spend time with them. And if you only see them 4 times a year, then Are you only seeing them, like, are you seeing them alone, or are you seeing them at Christmas, Easter, those kinds of things? And if you're seeing them at those types of things and you're not getting value out of them, you can still care for them. You can still love them. You can still accept them for where they are, but you don't have to engage with them. You don't have to be sitting across the table with them, having a conversation as they're berating you or making you feel bad about your choices. If that's happening, here's the other thing. This is something that I find absolutely fascinating, that like people pleasers don't think about, that people that are kind don't think about. When somebody is being mean to you, and this isn't the case necessarily with you, Sarah. I kind of am just interpreting, but this might not be the case, but it's still good advice. When people are mean to us and like, why aren't you this way? Or why are you this way now? Or whatever the case may be. And they're being mean and they're not being accepting and they're not curious. They're just like putting their judgment on you. We, a lot of the time, take it, feel bad about it, go leave that party. And I was like, oh my gosh, Aunt Hester, she's just horrible. Like, it's so mean. Why don't we just ask her, why does that bother you? Why does that bother you? How am I hurting anybody? Like these questions, the questions that actually matter, like how is what my choice, how is what I'm doing affecting you? And then stop and then just listen and just let them answer the question. And you don't have to be like, I know the way that I just said it really sounds snarky and like shitty, but it's not. You can just be kind. And when they say, fill in the blank, I don't know, whatever fill in the blank is. If you have a thing, truly comment and fill in the blank and help a girl out here. But let's say they say, so for me, I don't want to have children. I don't want to have kids. I love kids. I think that they're wonderful. I love spending time with them. When I'm at a party and there's children, I will be on the floor with the kids, playing with them quicker than I will be sitting at a table talking to the adults. I think children are fascinating, but I do not want any of my own. And so I used to have people in my life that would be like, well, you'll change your mind. Well, why don't you want children? I had a friend that was like, you're going to really regret the decision that you don't want to have kids. And I was like, I don't think so. But I had people like that. If you can take that in and then just say, why is me not having kids upsetting you so much? And then stop and just let them answer that, because what answer do they have? Because you should be having kids, because you should be, because you're old enough that you should be having children. But I don't want them. So how does that affect you? Why are you getting so angry about me not having children? And then wait. I think that's a really fascinating way of making people, because people like that don't get questioned. People like that just like throw out their shit and then they're just like, oh, okay, good. I made her uncomfortable. Great. Check. Move on. Now I'm going to go and make like little Susie down there. See, Sue's, I don't know where Sue is coming from, but it's like the name of the word here, or the day here. But like, oh, little Susie's in the corner. Now I'm going to go and like ask her why she's dressing like that. I'm going to go ask Leanne why she keeps having such short hair. I'm going to go and ask Bozo why he's whatever, you know what I mean? Like, they just don't think about it. And this is how they're having conversations. Sometimes people, like I said about Gain earlier, maybe that's how he made friends, by making like silly jokes. And this just isn't the living room for that. But he didn't know that. So now he's like maybe off to another living room where he can make those jokes and feel comfortable. Or maybe hopefully he's still here listening. I really hope he's still here listening. And just comes up with different jokes for us. So Sarah says, oh, that's good. Yeah. And we don't have to be mean, and we don't have to put people on the spot either. So if we say like, why does me not having kids affect you so much? Why are you so upset? And don't say it in a snarky way that's like, what the hell does it matter to you? Like, you don't have to say that. Just like out of curiosity, that's that whole youthfulness, because that's what a kid would say. A kid would be like, why does that bother you? Why are you sad? Why are you upset about that? Why are you angry? Like, if it doesn't make sense, because that doesn't compute, you're sitting across a kitchen table and you're getting upset with somebody because of the decisions they made, a child would look at that and be like, why? Have that youthfulness, have that curiosity, and just do that so then you can just understand. And then if they start getting upset about it or they get whatever, then that's fine. Then you can just like move on and be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you all heated about this. Okay, I'm going to go and get some Cadbury eggs now. I'm just going to go over there, whatever. But if you can have a conversation out of curiosity, maybe they'll be like, you know what? Because there's so many kids or there's so many people out there that can't have children and you can. And I think that we need to have more. Or maybe because I love you so much and I just want you to have other little Sarahs running around, or maybe whatever it is, right? You can start tapping in and then you'll start seeing how they think. You'll start seeing like what their actual fears are, but we don't have those conversations. Somebody says something, we take it as face value, we move on with the conversation, and then we judge that person. It's like Aunt Hester, is that what I called her? Aunt Hester is just like fixated on everybody wanting to have kids, right? No, maybe Aunt Hester is really lonely. Maybe that's what it is. And maybe she knows that the adults in the room don't have conversations with her, but the kids do. And there's less kids now. Maybe that's part of it. You know what I mean? Like there's something going on, because otherwise people just wouldn't care too much about what you're doing. People don't have the time to care about other people unless it's directly affecting them. And your choices really shouldn't be affecting anybody unless it's hitting a chord. So that would be my little suggestion on that. But yeah, I think, and we've got to do the inventory. Why do we care more about people that maybe are just not kind? And there's people like, the other thing that I do that again sounds morbid, I've brought this up a couple times now already. The other thing that I do is I look at, okay, when I'm on my deathbed and I'm thinking back about my relationship with this person, am I going to be happy with this decision that I'm making right now? If I'm going to cut somebody off of my life, like I'm going to start ghosting them, or I'm going to start like being like, hey, you know what? I don't really like the way that I feel when I'm around you, and you move on. Am I going to feel good about that decision? And if the answer is no, then I try to clean it up. And if the answer is, yeah, I don't think it's really going to matter because they're never going to change and they don't really notice you anyway, they're just mean to you and then they move on, then that's your answer. But if your answer is, oh man, Aunt Hester is like really mean, I would look at it like, you know what? I think on my deathbed, I'm going to look at that and be like, why was I ignoring Aunt Hester? She was probably mean because she was hurt. Because only hurt people, you guys. That one sentence, if you can tattoo that on yourself and say, and remember that only hurt people hurt people. And so that is a really powerful sentence. It's a really powerful thought that when people are hurting you, they're hurt. And so if you can come at them with love and with curiosity and letting them be heard and letting them be seen, they don't have to lash out anymore. They don't have to keep bugging me about having kids. We can get down to the root of the fact that they're lonely. And then we can spend maybe more time with them. Maybe that'll turn around and we'll be like, oh, instead of me not having a conversation with Aunt Hester, I'm actually going to go see Aunt Hester next week. I'm going to go take her out for lunch. You know, like things can really change with our stories, with the stories that we have and the stories that we tell ourselves. So that's the message for this. I know that normally I end this with like a couple questions about like, you know, fire round kind of, or what, lightning round. I didn't get any, but let's see. I'll ask one question and then cause I didn't even realize, but we're already an hour and 10 minutes in. So one question that I would like you guys to answer is, if you feel like you have been wronged by somebody, and this is going to be a deep one, so I guess I'm going to keep talking because you're going to have a little bit to talk or to write. If you feel like you've been wronged by somebody, I don't want to know what your go-to used to be. Going forward, if you feel like you've been wronged by somebody, how do you think you're going to handle that now going forward? If somebody either wronged you or said something shitty to you or was mean to you, How do you think that you're going to handle that now going forward? I'd love to know. And Mel, if you're here, I'd love to know. Britt, if you're here, I'd love to know. Gain, if you're here, I'd love to know. And then who else did we have? We had, oh, it wasn't. Oh yeah, it was Gain. Drox, if you're still here, are you still here? Because you kind of fell off too. I'd love to know how you guys think, like, did you get anything from this show, or do you already handle that well and you want to share with us how you handle that? Because I think this is really important. So next week we are going to, wait a minute, let me see. I think next week is the last week. Yes, it is. So next week we are going to be talking about our stories and how they affect our youthfulness. So that should be a good show. I do invite you to invite your friends to the show because I love this conversation. Like, I think it's so cool. And what I find really, really fascinating is how, depending on the topic or depending on like what is coming up as we're having the conversation, usually it gets a little heavier with one or two of you guys, which is really, that's the way it usually is in a living room, or when you're just like shooting the shit with your friends. You could be like 4 or 5 of you guys in a room, and during certain parts of the conversation, there's 2 people that are having more of the conversation, and then the 2 or 3 people around them are usually listening to that and being like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That's what I love about this show, that it's like, we're able to, okay, this really like kind of tapped into Sarah. And so her and I were able to have a conversation, but I see that there's eyeballs, that you guys are watching it. So that's what is really, really special to me about this show. And that's what I love about our Facebook group. So if you're not there, I would love for you to come on over to the Friend Leigh Show over on Facebook. Because we do continue having conversations over there, and same thing is happening, that sometimes it's, you know, a couple people are having a conversation and I know other people are watching and gaining something from it. So that's a little blurry anyway. So yeah, so I'd love for you guys to come on over there. I've got some exciting things that are going to be coming. I know I've been saying this a lot, but it's just true. And 2 weeks from today is my birthday. So I'm super excited. We were going to definitely have the show. It was funny. I was talking to my therapist and she was like, I said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. That's my birthday. And she's like, do you want to reschedule? And I was like, what? No. Why would I want to reschedule? I love talking to you and I love talking to you guys. So I'm super excited to celebrate my birthday with you guys. And my goal is to have all of the things, not all of the things. There's so much. I'm not going to have all of the things ready for you guys, but I do want to be able to make the big announcement in 2 weeks. So make sure that you're there. September 4th. It's my birthday. And we're going to be talking about a new theme. I don't exactly know what that theme will be. So if you have a suggestion of a theme that you want to run for the month of September, let me know. You can email me, thefriendleishow@gmail.com. Or you can DM me over on Facebook or even Instagram. I'm on Instagram too. I'm trying to get better at that. So there we go. Britt says, oh, good. Okay. Britt says, first I ask myself if it really matters. Usually no, because I couldn't care less if others don't like me. If it matters, my first response is to just bury it. But talking it out works best. I used to be a barrier. I used to be one that was just like, oh, just shove that shit down. Just like, it's so much easier just like not to have the confrontation. And what I realized, you're absolutely right. Talking it out really does work best. But Britt, I love the fact that you ask yourself first, does it really matter? Because there's a lot of things that just doesn't matter. I heard a saying probably about like 10 years ago, and it really changed the way that I looked at things, because I do like being right. I'm very competitive. I do like to prove myself. I'm trying to work on that because it really doesn't matter. But I'm very competitive, and I like that part of me, because that part of me, it really makes me be the person that I am. And I like that. I like that I push myself. But now the only person that I really want to be competitive with is the old me. That's it. I just want to better myself. I just want to be better than I was before. I just want to get a faster time in general, on average, you know, when I'm like training. I just want to do just be a little bit kinder than I was. I want to have a little bit more patience than I did. I just want like a little bit more, right? So that's what now I'm trying to be more competitive with myself to up my level of where I'm at. But what I used to be is I used to be competitive in everything and I wanted to be right about everything. And so I wouldn't bury things. I would like get into it and be like, oh no, this is whatever. And I would always try to be right. But if I thought that it was going to be a confrontation that I wasn't going to be able to win, I just bury it. I'm like, I just don't want to even have this conversation. I want to have the fight. That's it. And put it down. But now that I know how important conversations are, now I try to have that conversation as much as I can so that I can understand people better. And so that curiosity makes it a lot easier. And actually, it makes conversations that maybe if you were really trying to be right, or you were really trying to like, if you were really trying to like, I don't know, be right is usually the thing. The conversation is like so long and so heated and so everything. And if you could just be curious about it, all of a sudden it's like, here's the conversation. Cause it's just like, oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. And you just take it in and you're just like, oh, that's where you are. That's like looking at it like that is pretty cool. So here we go. Okay, you guys, you're doing it. This is awesome. Mel says, so my feelings get hurt. Oh, okay. So yeah, so that's completely honest, Mel. I love that. But once I figure out if it matters, like my former boss, for instance, that's who she is. So I bless and release. And Sarah says, bless and release. I love that. Yes. So that's really good. And yeah, I think that's a really good advice too, is like seeing who that person is, seeing where things came from really matters. It really matters. And if it's coming from a hurt person, or if it's coming from somebody that you just know hasn't done the work, like we can't expect it. It's kind of like having a conversation with a 5-year-old and being like, why can't you give me the right answers about the astronomy question that I just asked you? They don't know, but we're expecting something more out of them. They're just not there, right? Like you ask a 5-year-old, how do you spell elephant? And if they can't do it, you're not like, oh, that's it. I can't have a conversation with you anymore. They're just not there yet. And so it's the same thing with spiritual awakenings, with mental capacity, with all of this kind of thing. We got to kind of just like be with people where they are and accept it. Bless and release is a really good one. Or just bless them and just be there too, regardless. So Britt says, my dad told me once, and I love, oh my gosh, your dad had the best sayings. Never let your actions or reactions be dictated by the other person, because you give away your power. Yes. Amen. That's a really great point. That's a very, very, very good point. Yes. Okay. You guys, I absolutely love you guys so freaking much. So thank you so much, Mel and Britt. I'm so happy that you were here for the whole thing, even though it was kind of like the Sarah and Leigh show for a good part of that. And Sarah, thank you so much for being so open and having such great questions and great comments and great advice. You guys are just all amazing. I love you so much. I cannot wait to see you next week. Will be regular time. Thank you so much for altering the time for me tonight. I had to go and pick Mike up. We had a big to do with, he had a rental car because he got hit by a deer. He's fine, but it was this whole thing. And I just was like, oh my gosh. I asked him, I was like, will I be able to make it back by 8? He's like, you're delusional. No, you will not be able to make it back by 8. So I was like, okay, I'll shift till 9. So thank you guys for making that shift with me. It is getting late. It's 10:30. We should all be in bed. So sweet dreams. I love you. And I will talk to you hopefully in the Friend Leigh Show on Facebook. If not, I will see you next week. Bye. Love you guys. Big hugs. Big hugs. Love you. Bye.